Yate bene, or actually just yate. Hello, my relatives. It's just afternoon here, about 12:30. I am speaking to you from Piscataway land, what's now called Washington, D.C., and it is Wednesday, November 23rd, the day before Thanksgiving. So I want to welcome everyone who's here. I want to do, as I always do, by starting this live stream just by acknowledging I'm speaking to you from what's the traditional lands of the Piscataway, and I want to honor the Piscataway as the hosts of the land where I'm living. I want to thank them for their stewardship of these lands, and I want to just state how humbled I am to be living on these lands today. So thank you for joining me, my relatives. If you have been watching on my social media today, you'll see that I did do a sunrise this morning. I went out, and today's the last clear day, really until next Monday, almost about 4 or 5 days of cloudy skies and some rain over the weekend. And so I wanted to make sure I got out this morning. It was a beautiful sunrise. If you haven't seen it yet, you can find it on my YouTube channel. You can find it on my Instagram and on my Facebook page. But yeah, it's good to be here with you. I see Shantina is here. Yeah, hey Shantina, thank you for joining, Mr. Phil Fox. Kehat Phil, thanks for wishing me a happy birthday. For those of you who don't know, tomorrow is my birthday, so I'm a Thanksgiving around the day baby. So once every 7 years, my birthday actually falls on Thanksgiving, which is becoming more convenient. Right? If you've been listening to me these past few years, you'll know that I no longer celebrate Thanksgiving. I stopped celebrating it a few years ago. And so it's always a bit awkward, especially with family or with other people, to know what to do. And it's a weird where everyone is kind of with family and celebrating a day, and we're kind of taking the day off. But at least once every 7 years, we can celebrate at the same time as the rest of the country. Just they'll be celebrating Thanksgiving, and I'll be celebrating my birthday. So yeah, that's what's going on this week. I haven't done a second cup of coffee in a couple weeks. I was traveling last week, and I went to both Los Angeles as well as to Ohio, and had some really good events. I was really grateful for the opportunity to go to Los Angeles. I spoke at LA City College, and they had a day of gratitude gathering that they hosted, and they specifically started it before Thanksgiving, and they intentionally did not call it a Thanksgiving Day gathering, in part because of the history they were aware of regarding Native Americans and that holiday. And so they invited me this year in to come and talk about why I don't celebrate Thanksgiving and what's the true history behind that. And it was a good event. It was a not awkward, but it was a logistically challenging event because they had several hundred students they were bringing in throughout the meal. And this was the first time they've done it in a few years because of COVID, that they did it in person. The last couple of years, they've just handed out meals as people drove by and picked them up. And so this was the first time having a physical gathering in one place. And but they do this for the students, and so they bring a lot of students through. And so it wasn't just like you have a room full of people and you can do an easy program, but they had students coming and going throughout. But they really wanted to have me speak, and so they made space at the back of the gymnasium for students who had eaten their meals but wanted to stay. They could stay, but there were always people coming through and going through the buffet line. But I really appreciated it. I really enjoyed the time I had to engage with the audience there, and to talk about why I don't celebrate Thanksgiving, to lay out some of the history behind it, and to just talk very honestly about what it is we're celebrating on Thanksgiving, and how the day was both established in genocide and was brought into the modern era as a day of thanksgiving for the fruits of genocide. And so, yeah, I was able to lay that out and actually had a lot of really good conversations with both members of the faculty and administration, as well as with the students while I was at LA City College. And I've been invited to come back. They would actually really like me to have me back on campus next semester. And so I'm working with some of the faculty there to talk about what can we do, because they want me to have an even more intentional point of interaction with the student, where there's not even the distraction of a meal going on, but we can just kind of talk much more in an intentional space to talk about this history and to discuss these things. So I'm looking forward to that. Hopefully, sometime in early 2023. And then I flew from there to Oberlin, actually to Cleveland, Ohio, and drove into Oberlin, which is just outside of Cleveland, about 30 miles. And Oberlin is an interesting place, right? It's a small college. It's actually the first college in the country to enroll Black students. It was a college and a site along the Underground Railroad, and it began both admitting women and African American people, or Black students, long before most of the other colleges began doing that. And so that's a very distinct um, thing about that, something that the college is um, grateful and even proud that they were able to do that. But they invited me to come in, and the diversity office invited me to come in and talk about the Doctrine of Discovery. And that event was a bit smaller. We had about 30 people show up for that. It wasn't a campus-wide event. It was just an event organized by one of the offices on campus. And so it was a smaller venue and a smaller gathering. But the discussion still went really well. I think I was very grateful for the response and the questions that the students gave me that night. And then the next day, we had some time for some Q&A on campus, and was able to answer some questions and go more in depth on some of the topics. And I really appreciated that. And again, Oberlin is also hoping to bring me back sometime next semester. And so I'm looking forward to hopefully going back and engaging maybe even a broader campus-wide event at Oberlin sometime in early 2023. Yeah, so those were the two events that I did. I've been much more intentional these past few months to make sure that my presentations include a very full deconstruction of the mythology of Abraham Lincoln. And I've been pushing that and intentionally addressing his both his blatant, unapologetic, self-proclaimed white supremacy, as well as his genocidal policies and his establishing Thanksgiving as a day of celebration for the fruits of the genocide that he was actively committing. And it's been very refreshing to kind of talk with students about that, talk with members of my audiences about that. Um, there's one of the things I have to make sure I remember whenever I give these presentations is my journey of beginning to kind of deconstruct that mythology of Abraham Lincoln took several months. Um, and it required some actually very intentional time of just lament and mourning, both what he did as well as the lies I believed about him and the mythology that I not only accepted but really embraced about him. And so I have to remember that, right? I'm able to deconstruct and lay out what took me several months to begin to gain an understanding of and to comprehend, and I can lay it out for people in about 30 minutes. And so I have to remember just the emotional journey I'm bringing them on, and the massive paradigm shift I'm giving them as I'm talking about Abraham Lincoln, and need to make sure that I give people the time to digest that and even comprehend that which is one of the reasons I love to stay for a second day at most of my events, so that we can do like we did at Oberlin College, which is have some Q&A the day after people have both had some REM cycles in their system, and so their brains have been able to process things a bit more, and they've had some time to think about it, and we can come back and have a bit more in-depth discussion about it. So I'm hoping in 2023 I'm going to be able to do that even more frequently and more intentionally. As I've really begun to think about what are some of the next steps for the work I'm trying to do. um, I think I have to get people to understand um, the vileness of Abraham Lincoln, not just of what he did, but of the fact that we celebrate what he did and actually hold that up implicitly as why he's our greatest president. And this is where I don't feel content just to say I'm done celebrating Thanksgiving. I literally am moving closer and closer to strongly advocating that as a nation, if we want to have any integrity as a country that values freedom and equality, we have to stop celebrating Abraham Lincoln, and we have to stop celebrating Thanksgiving. We can't redeem these holidays, right? We just need to cease, because they're so seeped in this dehumanizing worldview, this explicit white supremacy, and this intentional celebration of genocide. And we just have to cease these celebrations and these types of honorings in our country. So I'm still putting together how I'm going to be doing that in this next year, but I think it's going to become an even more prominent part of the presentations that I give and of the work that I'm doing to move this forward. Let me see who's on here. I see a lot of people wishing me happy birthday. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Cheryl Ann, Achehat, Shantina, Achehat. I'm grateful to everyone for wishing me a happy birthday. Shantina, yeah, this does sound like another book. Although one, I don't know how I'm going to write it yet, because the book I'm working on right now, the title I'm working with is called Decolonizing Faith. And it's much more about kind of my faith journey that I've been on for both the past 20 years of my life, as well as for the past 2.5 years of my life, where I've really wrestled with some things at a very deep level. And so I'm working currently on this book that I want to call Decolonizing Faith. And I've been talking about it in some of my presentations, and it seems like there's a really strong desire for people to wrestle with some of these same things. And so I'm looking at doing that. Maybe after that book, I may do some more intentional writing about Abraham Lincoln. I'm not sure yet, but that's definitely something I think I would definitely love to put some more time into. I don't have a huge agenda of things I want to talk about today. I knew I just wanted to get on and discuss things and make sure I continue to connect with people here on my social media. So if you actually have a question that you want to pose in the chat right now, you're welcome to put a question in there. I would encourage you to put the word question in front of your comment, so that way I'll make sure I see it when it comes up in the comment stream that I have on my control panel right here. But if you have any questions you'd like to ask me about both my schedule or my upcoming schedule, or even the stuff I've been thinking about with Thanksgiving or Abraham Lincoln, please feel free to put any of that into the comment section, and I'm happy to address some of those things. I'm also beginning to look at, and I just have had some very intentional conversations these past 2 days about what I want to do in this next year. Of course, one of the questions I get very frequently is, what am I going to do about the election in 2024? Am I going to be running in 2024 or not? And my answer coming up onto the midterms has always been, I'll decide after the midterms, and I'll make a decision in early 2023. And I still am going to sit down with some people who advise me and who have been journeying with me on this, and I'm going to make an intentional decision, or at least I'm going to look very, very carefully at the situation, both nationally as well as within my own platform, and talk about what I want to do in these next few years. But as I've been kind of processing through some of the stuff I want to work on, and as I've been thinking even about what would be different if I were to run in 2024, one of the things I've felt strongly about is that I would want to have a different strategy. I felt like we did a lot of things really well. The volunteers that we had, the passionate people we had engaged with us were all tremendous. The people, the staff we brought on, I'm very grateful for everyone who did that. The people who stepped up. I feel like I, as the candidate, did not have the best strategy, and I was fairly naive in running, and had a lot to learn. And so one of the things I said, if I am going to do this again at any point, I want to have a better strategy. I think our vision was good. The issues we were addressing were good. All those things were very, very good. But I would want to have a different strategy. The other thing that I've thought a lot about these past few months is, I thought we would be able to build a bigger platform as we were running. And part of it might have been COVID, but we weren't able to gain the platform that we wanted, or even the fundraising that we wanted, because my platform just wasn't really large enough. And so even when we promoted it to the people who followed me early on, it took a long time for the fundraising to begin to come in and for us to be able to begin to grow things more intentionally. And then when we kind of were hitting a stride with that, that's when COVID hit, and that became even harder after that. And since my campaign ended in November 2020, so 2 years ago, my platform hasn't shrunk, but neither has it grown much. It's fairly about the same size. My social media audience and the people I have engaging with me is about the same size I had when the campaign ended. And I'm just acknowledging that I don't know if that's a large enough of a platform to launch a national campaign from. And so, there's the third thing: is this something the nation, not the passionate individuals around me, but the nation, not only is willing to engage with, but even wants to engage with. And so there's a lot of things that I need to assess about that too. And one of the thoughts that just hit me these past few days is, especially with Trump having just announced right after the midterm elections. And I remember back in 2020, there was a guy who announced, like, a year before the midterms. He announced soon after the 2016 election. He announced in either 2017 or early 2018, I forget. And he moved to Iowa and just basically set up camp there and began campaigning right away. And this campaign didn't go very far because people were kind of sick of him by the time the campaign rolled around. I forget his name right now. He was running as a Democrat. And he was actually at one of the events that I did. It was in Iowa at the Vote Common Good forum that I was a part of in Iowa, in Des Moines. And I think he dropped out soon after that event. And I wouldn't, right? So Trump has to campaign and has to keep people's attention for an entire year, 2 years, which we know he's very good at getting people's attention, but he also, he's a hard person to listen to, even if you like him, right? He's a hard person, and I'm not saying I like him, but he's a hard person to listen to just because he doesn't have much vision and he just brings up so much anger. And so I think he's going to struggle with that. And I just thought, there's the normal campaign. A lot of people begin announcing, well, Joe Biden's going to make a decision, he said, in early 2023. And then that will determine how many people announce from the Democratic Party, right? If Joe Biden commits to running again, that will keep a lot of people out. Um, Most likely will keep Vice President Harris out. Pete Buttigieg is obviously being groomed by the Democratic Party to step into. I really think he's their new. He's going to be the face of the Democratic Party, then the one that the institution is going to get behind. If once Biden steps aside, whether it's in 2 years or in 4 years. But so if Biden stays in, I highly doubt that Pete Buttigieg would join the race. There may be a few others, but Biden would probably almost certainly have the inside track into the nomination. And of course, Donald Trump will obviously be facing some competition in this next campaign, most likely from Ron DeSantis and maybe a few others. Wouldn't be surprised if Liz Cheney jumped into the ring. But again, Donald Trump will have the inside track. And so that will also weigh in my. But anyway, that's all going to start. But the primaries don't start until early 2024. And I just realized, yeah, if I'm going to run in this, I think especially if I were to look at, okay, if I had to make a choice today, I don't feel like my platform is at the space. I don't feel like I have enough insight into a new strategy, and I don't feel like I know what um, what we would radically do different as we did in 2020. And so I think I would tend to lean maybe not right now. But I'm like, there's nothing that says I have to decide even in January. The independent and the third party races don't really start getting any sort of attention until the primary season, which is early 2024. Even in 2020, right? Both Brock Pierce and Kanye West didn't announce until much later. It was late 2023, early 2024 when they announced. So anyway, the point I'm making is I will sit down and think about it intentionally in early 2023, but I may take much of the year to kind of continue to revisit it and then make a more final decision. If I don't decide earlier, one way or the other, I see the door could remain open all the way up until early 2024. So who knows? I think the thing I'm most interested right now is I am really trying to grapple with of how do I, regardless of the campaign, regardless of what happens with the presidential election, presidential politics, I am trying to think through how do I help our nation wrestle with its history and with the doctrine of discovery. And there's a lot of things I actually want to try outside of a campaign. I love the book tour that we did last summer and the opportunity it gave me to engage with audiences all around the country, talking to hundreds of people I never would have had the chance to interact with. It almost felt like it was what I missed from the campaign, because I was just able to go out and set up small events and not worry about size or worry about money, and just kind of go out and engage with people much more directly. And I really, really enjoyed that. I love the way that my presentation on my book tour kind of refined itself, and it shaped itself differently throughout. And as I was giving it almost every other day for nearly 6 weeks, it started out and it was one thing, and it really kind of it firmed up and refined itself throughout. And now it's a lot of the things I'm talking about as I go out and do these paid presentations now. Um, And so I think there's a lot of things where I want to continue outside of the confinement of a campaign. I want to continue to look for ways to engage our nation with these issues. Because again, my primary objectives, which is this national dialogue on race, gender, and class, which is wrestling with issues like land titles and the doctrine of discovery, those can happen without a presidential campaign or without even getting into the White House. And so I want to look at what are some better ways, or what are some other ways that I can begin to engage this at a more national level um, in this next year. And so I'm going to be thinking through that and see what I can come up with and see what we can do. I'm very excited as my schedule for 2023 is already beginning to shape up. I have a fair amount of requests coming in. My schedule is still widely open, but I have a lot of very key and timely events that are being planned right now. Invitations I've received, different places around the country. Some doors that were open that want me to come back in the next year to engage this. One of the things I'm really excited about is um, the Criminal Justice Department at San Diego State University, SDSU in California. They're using our book on selling truths as part of their curriculum. And I gave a lecture to the class at the beginning of the semester last August. And the professor would love for me to try to come back and do something similar with more lead time and better planning to even more intentionally engage with the students about this issue. And the fact that, right, this is a secular university using our book in a criminal justice class um, is tremendous, right? Because of the ways it helps people wrestle with how this doctrine of discovery gets embedded into our legal system. And so that's one of the things I want to look at is, are there even more campuses that we can engage around the country to talk, especially with their criminal justice departments or other places, and say, hey, let's look at, are you willing to look at how the doctrine of discovery has influenced these parts of our government and of our society? So anyway, those are some things I'm thinking about. I really want to do something this week uh, around Thanksgiving. To be honest, though, I haven't had the energy. Not the physical energy, but just the emotional energy. I gave 2 long presentations last week and was able to engage with a lot of people. And I need to recognize that talking about this publicly is very taxing. Um, and so one of the things that I'm thinking about doing is either releasing some video that I shot about a month ago for my Patreon site, a lecture that I gave on my Patreon around Thanksgiving, and maybe releasing that on my YouTube later this week. I definitely would love to try and do a Q&A and to talk about some of that. So I'm going to think through some of that. I may do I do on my Patreon site, and I'm going to give you a link. First, if you want to buy signed copies of the book, I want you to know that throughout this entire month, you can buy signed copies of On Selling Truths from my website, and I'm offering free shipping for the Native American Heritage Month. So throughout the entire month, any orders placed on my website for signed copies of the book, including the book study special, which gives you 10 books for $200 and includes a 45-minute virtual Q&A by me. Even that comes with free shipping right now. But I also want to share this link to my Patreon site because every month I do a Q&A with the tiers, most of the tiers on my Patreon site. And the Ask Questions tier, which is the most popular tier, I think it's $10 a month, And I want to do I'm hoping to plan a Q&A for this coming Sunday evening, to talk about Thanksgiving and to do a Q&A around that. So I'll announce more about that on my social media these next few days. But there's the link to my Patreon site that I just put in there. And if you want to get signed up for that, you'll be able to join that Q&A. But yeah, because normally on Thanksgiving, I would take some time to process the day and share some stuff. But because tomorrow's my birthday, I'm like, I don't really want to spend the day going through all of that crap. And so I think I'm going to just enjoy a day with my family tomorrow. My daughter, one of my favorite desserts is cheesecake. And my daughter every year makes me a homemade cheesecake for my birthday. And she's gotten very good at it. I will post some pictures later about it. But so we're going to have cheesecake tomorrow for my birthday. We're not going to be eating turkey, but we'll have another special meal, and we're just going to spend some good time as a family. So I think tomorrow I'm going to take the day off, and not do a whole lot of engagement around the topic of Thanksgiving. I may release the video tomorrow. I have to put some thought into that today if I decide to put that up, or I may wait till Friday. I don't know fully what I'm going to do, but it will be on there if I post that. But yeah, that's kind of where things are at. I know I said earlier if you had questions, I'd be happy to answer any questions. Let me go back and look if anyone posted a question here. Doesn't look like it, but that's okay. I'm just grateful everybody is here. Thomas, thank you for joining today. I appreciate the birthday wishes. Mr. Phil Fox, excited about books coming out. Thank you. This site, Pontification, thanks for sharing your journey. So yeah, I want to thank everybody for joining this afternoon. Mary, appreciate your support. You have been a great partner and friend for a number of years now, and I'm grateful for your ongoing support and energy behind the stuff that I'm working on. So yeah, Mary. So yeah, I want to thank everybody for taking some time. Lynn, appreciate the election update. You're very welcome, Lynn. I'm going to be talking more about this. I also want to just acknowledge today, right, if you've been paying attention to the news, not only do we have that horrific shooting that happened with the football team in Virginia about a week and a half ago, but then also at the nightclub in Colorado. And then just last night at about 10:30 last night in Chesapeake, Virginia, there was a shooting at a Walmart with 7 people who were killed, including the gunman. And the violence throughout our nation is gut-wrenching. I lament the brokenness and the violent nature of our country. I'm not surprised by it, right? When we're founded in this sort of dehumanizing genocidal violence like we were founded in, it's no surprise that we continue to be a very violent society. And this is part of the reason why I'm teaching this history, because if we don't acknowledge the violence we were founded in, we're never going to be able to heal from the violence that we are still plagued by today. And so this is one of the reasons I'm teaching this history and engaging with these things. But my concern and my prayers are with the people in all of these communities, as well as the continued bombing in Ukraine. There was reports just this morning that I heard of a hospital was bombed in Ukraine, and a newborn baby had been killed. The doctor and the mother were survived, but the child was killed. And again, this is just gut-wrenching. I can only imagine how that family is feeling, as well as the fact that Russia has been just destroying the infrastructure throughout Ukraine, which is going to cause a very, very difficult winter for the citizens of Kiev and the other major cities around the country. And yeah, the violence that our nation, our nations, our globe is seeped in is very, very heartbreaking and gut wrenching right now. So there's a lot happening. There's a lot going on, um, and it will get even louder with the more people announcing and campaigning for president, and the media is going to begin to amplify this destructive rhetoric. We already see what's going on with Twitter, right? There's so much going on. But even though I'm not celebrating Thanksgiving, I'm grateful that people can gather with their families and can be with loved ones this weekend. And I hope that you all have great time seeing families and friends. If you're able to educate anyone who you meet about the Doctrine of Discovery and about this ongoing dehumanizing violence our nation was founded in and that we are plagued with today, please share with them about my book, share with them about other authors who are writing. I'm continuing to be grateful for people like Sarah Augustine and her book, The Land is Not Empty, Stephen Newcomb, obviously, with his book, Pagans in the Promised Land, and so many people working so hard to educate our country on our destructive foundations. But yeah, so I encourage you. You don't have to lay guilt trip on everyone for eating turkey tomorrow, or even celebrating Thanksgiving. But please, if you're able to, find a way to educate your friends and family members and to get them to think differently about this holiday and engage with the reality of what we've done and what our nation was founded in. Prepare them for a conversation so that as we continue to try to move things more nationally to this stuff to the national stage, people will be primed for it. They'll be ready to have these kind of questions and conversations. Anyway, I hope your cup of coffee is as good as mine. I was very excited earlier this week. I was able to go to my favorite coffee house here in DC. It's called Bourbon Coffee. They sell Rwanda coffee beans, and it is fast become my favorite place. For a long time I've loved Rwanda coffee beans, and I was very grateful to finally find a place in DC that sells them. It's a bit out of the way, so I have to go downtown, and there's not much parking near it, so it's a bit of a hassle to get there. So I stock up whenever I get down there. But I went there earlier this week and was excited to come back with 3 bags of coffee that should last me for several weeks. So anyway, my relatives, have a great day. Be safe if you're traveling on the roads. Enjoy your time with family. Remember the truth about this holiday, and thank you for your partnership and your support as I continue to teach this history and try to engage these conversations and create this common memory. Hakonet, my relatives. Walk in beauty, and may we all learn how to walk in beauty together.